Welcome to Where Are They Now?, where we reach into the archives of Lenape, Shawnee, Cherokee, and Seneca high schools and invite selected alumni to share their memories and fill us in on their career paths after commencement. Since Lenape's first graduating class in 1961, Shawnee's in 1972, Cherokee's in 1978, and Seneca's in 2005, over 77,000 individuals have received diplomas from these four schools. Join us now for another Lenape District alumni interview on Where Are They Now?
Hello and welcome to Season 20 of Where Are They Now? I'm Mark Sonsini, a 1996 graduate of Cherokee High School. And today we'll be talking with another Cherokee alum, this time from the class of 1993. She is a physician residing in Del Mar, California. I'd like to welcome Dr. Sarah Schuler McNew to the show. Sarah, thanks for joining us today.
Hello.
Great to have you here with us. I'm excited to hear about your career in the medical field. But first, let's go back to your time at Cherokee. And just before Cherokee, I know you kind of moved around a little bit. You didn't grow up in the Marlton area. Tell me why that was.
Well, my father was in the Air Force, and so I was born locally at Fort Dix and moved to Okinawa, Kadena Air Force Base, and then Northern California, which is Travis Air Force Base, and then in Nebraska, which is Offutt Air Force Base in Bellevue. And my dad retired from the Air Force and moved back to South Jersey, where his family is from. So that's when we moved to Marlton during my sophomore year of high school.
And what was that like for you as a kid, moving around like that? Was it something you thought interesting, or was it just kind of the way it was?
Yeah, I actually kind of liked it. I liked the idea of a new adventure and seeing something new. It's good. I think that the last move was early high school. That probably would have been more difficult in later high school.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought it was more as an adventure as opposed to something annoying.
Right.
Yeah.
Good.
I was glad to have that experience.
And along with moving around, right before you started Cherokee, you had some other life changes as well. Tell us about that.
Right. There were a lot of things that happened. My dad, retired from the Air Force. We moved back to Jersey and didn't know where we were going to live. So I was temporarily going to Morristown High School for the very beginning of sophomore year. My mom had been battling cancer on and off for 8 years. So we knew she was going to pass, and she did pass away the first week that we moved into the new home in Marlton. So right before I started Cherokee, my mom passed away, and so yeah, that was a big life change at that point.
Yeah.
But I'm very grateful for the welcoming committee, that was there to accept students that hadn't been there, and someone to talk to, someone to sit down with lunch to. So I was very happy for that.
Good. So yeah, you quickly got acclimated to the Cherokee family, so that's good. Speaking of that Cherokee family, tell me about some of the teachers that had an impact on you at Cherokee. A couple I know were in science, correct?
That's right. So Mrs. Allen was a great support, kind of pointing out that I was really, really good at science. I didn't really think about it at that point, but and Mrs. Sadelsky. I remember one of the activities that Mrs. Sadelsky wanted me to do was to lead an after-school event with elementary school kids, and I dressed up in a wizard costume and was trying to do science projects in front of them, like make smoke appear from my fingers.
Oh, cool.
I don't think it went very well, but it was fun to prepare for.
Right.
I think I had Mrs. Malcolm for all 3 years that I was there, and she was really supportive with math pursuits and other things.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm really thankful to them. I was also the editor of the yearbook for the last year of high school. So one thing I wanted to do was, if I got anybody's name wrong or their activities wrong in this book here, I'm really, really sorry. I know editor sounds like you're supposed to be going through and fixing things, and there was
Right.
very little editing that was done, just initial typing. So sorry. And thank you to Tasneem for finishing the supplement. I spent a lot of time with the advisor, Mrs. Horvath. So I have great memories of just talking about life and both of our dislikes for vegetables during that time of editing the yearbook together.
I know yes, my daughter is in the yearbook club at her school and at Cherokee as well, and it's a lot of work that goes into that. So, yes. We won't hold it against you if you missed a couple of things. And a couple other teachers at Cherokee also that helped you kind of with some other stuff, some kind of life relationship stuff. Tell us about them.
Yes, there were your typical heartbreak issues, happening, and drama. And sometimes you just have a tough day and you're at school and you need some support. Ms. Rulo and Ms. LeClaire were there for me, and I'm so grateful, because even though I'm a student in their class, I'm a relative stranger, and so they sat down and spent time to just listen or to give me a cookie, and that was very memorable to get that kind of support from someone that I didn't know very well, and to normalize the whole experience for me.
That's good. I'm glad they helped you with that. The activities you mentioned, yearbook editor. You're also in bowling and track. Tell us about those.
Well, before that, I mean, I've always been a fast runner, and so track came pretty natural. But during junior year, I said, hey, I want to play a sport that's a team sport that everybody is working together. So after never playing soccer in my entire life or being on a club team, I started, JV as a 16-year-old.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if that's a good idea. It was fun, but I actually had a knee injury there that kind of affected my ability to play sports for the rest of my life. But bowling was totally fine. So I was able to still bowl. I have great friends still from bowling. Hi, Suzanne. When I still was able to run track, I was a sprinter. I think I gave hurdles a little bit of a try, long jump a try, and high jump a try. And then on bowling, it was just so much fun to be on the bus and go to the local lanes and spend so much time together. Yeah, I have fond memories from bowling.
And do you remember your high score?
I'm bad with numbers. It was probably only about, if I had to guess, like 152.
All right, it's respectable.
Not your perfect 300, but somewhere in there.
That's all right. Okay. And we were talking before the show, you mentioned homeroom gave you an opportunity to kind of build some relationships, again, kind of being new to the school, some relationships you may not have had otherwise. Tell us about them.
When we were bused to school, I was one of the earlier kids to get there. And so, you had a lot of time in homeroom or before homeroom to chat with the people in your homeroom. So I'm very familiar with the people whose names start with the letter S.
Right.
So Nargis Shahangian, Bill Schmidt, Robin Sawyer, just great memories of just being able to relax and talk about stuff other than, whatever it was that we were doing in class.
Right.
So 3 years of good times with folks with the letter S.
Yeah, no, it's very true. Like you said, being in a homeroom where it's done by alphabet, you get to see people you wouldn't have otherwise. So that's a good point. Okay, so after Cherokee, you graduate and we're moving on to Johns Hopkins University for your undergrad. Any interesting activities or things that you were involved with there?
Yeah, I was a biology major, and I was very involved in the Chinese Students Association and eventually became president of that organization. So learned a little bit of leadership skills there and discovered my love for event planning, So I was the one driving the 10-person bus to Pennsylvania to go whitewater rafting or planning dances at a local hotel. So
Right.
those were really great activities. I love to dance, and had friends who loved to dance. So those are my positive memories from Johns Hopkins, and learning, of course.
Of course, of course. But you mentioned that's where you started getting into salsa dancing, right? Was around that time when you were finishing up at Johns Hopkins?
Yes, I think for the grad students there was, and it was open to the undergrads. There was a program for ballroom dance, so
Okay.
kind of learned the basics of swing, foxtrot, salsa, mambo, and then discovered that I really, really liked formal dance as well, and partner dance. So later on, I've taken quite a bit of salsa and salsa instruction.
Okay, so after Johns Hopkins, you're off to UMDNJ for med school, and then you also did your internal medicine internship there as well. Tell us about that experience.
Med school is tough. You probably heard from your
Yes.
other guests. I mean, the first 2 years are book learning. You're kind of used to that, right? You've
Right.
been doing that for years. And then when you are in your last 2 years of med school, which is clerkship, for someone who's never really worked a lot in a team type setting, it is very shocking. You're sort of thrown into cold water and trying to learn how to work in teams. And internship is what you expect,
Yeah.
call at night and being up all night and trying to survive during the daytime. Great lessons learned, and very helpful for the next step, which was residency. I lived in Newark, New Jersey. That's an interesting place to live, and
A little bit different from South Jersey.
a little bit different. Yeah, and it's neat to be in Newark because of the Portuguese influence and the great restaurants that are there, being so close to New York.
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of great life experience.
Okay. And from there, you do your physical medicine and rehabilitation residency. And is that sort of where you started to zero in on spine care, or?
Yes, so physical medicine doctors can be from a broad spectrum of things, from dealing in prosthetics and orthotics if you've had an amputation, to doing nerve conduction studies to figure out if you have carpal tunnel, and then inpatient care where you're taking care of folks who have had strokes or a brain injury or recovering from major surgery or major trauma. A lot of us in physical medicine are taking care of people with spine problems. And so, yes, that's where I discovered I wanted to be in an outpatient setting, seeing people in clinic,
Okay.
and helping people with their musculoskeletal issues. 80% of people in their lifetime will have a major neck or low back event. And so we'll seek specialty care typically. And it's from residency that, I was thinking about, well, how am I going to get more education about the subject matter of the spine?
Okay.
But before that, I got to spend a lot of time with physical therapists,
Okay.
and seeing how they can help patients, and the physical therapists, frankly, are doing a lot of the real work. But the physiatrist or physical medicine doctor is part of that team of people that are helping the patient.
Okay. And then, so in 2005 is when you do your fellowship at the Cleveland Clinic in Ohio for non-surgical spine care. And like you were saying, it's a kind of a thing we were talking before about. It's not just the spine. There are a lot of other body parts that are very closely connected to that you deal with as well.
Mm-hmm. And so it can be hard to diagnose certain things because you can have a neck problem, but it radiates to the shoulder area. So you are trying to diagnose what is the major pain generator. Is it an actual joint? Is it a nerve, which is referring to another body part? Is it a muscle? And, what are the other contributing factors,
Right.
such as postural issues, or weakness or inflexibility? And a good example would be, a lot of people will say they have shoulder pain and they will point right here, but that's actually, these muscles right here are actually part of your neck. And especially during the pandemic, when a lot of people were kind of thrust into working from home from
Right.
a desk, and
Yeah.
then you see that the posture is sort of like this, and
Right.
you're wondering why you have pain here, that is posture related and muscular. So yeah, the physical medicine doctor can help kind of discern where to focus most of the patient's attention. Like,
Okay.
what do you really need to do to make your quality of life better, your sleep better, your exercise better, your work life better. But yes, you could potentially, as a phys med doctor, be treating the whole musculoskeletal system. So down to elbows, hands, knees, feet, everything. My particular kind of niche is more in the trunk and the low back and near the hips.
Okay. And I imagine you see a lot of different types of people, right? Like you said, it could just be somebody who's been working from home and doesn't realize that their posture is off, or it could be something related to a sports injury, or I imagine you see all different types of people relating to this, right?
That's right, because you can have problems with your spine from childhood on to, being 100 years old. So I'm seeing people of all ages, to try to point them in the right direction and where to focus their energy. A lot of times, and I actually kind of also figured this out in talking to my own father, is that, when people have an issue, a lot of times, since they haven't seen a specialist for it, they
Right.
kind of are thinking, well, I need to see my orthopedic surgeon. And there's certainly a time and a place for everything, and certain things are are surgical.
Right.
But with the spine, the majority of the time, like 95% of the time, there is not going to be a good surgery to quote unquote fix the issue.
Right.
So you need good guidance as far as what order to do things, what's important to do first before maybe accidentally having something really invasive done first. You're trying to optimize a bunch of factors before you make that really big decision. And so that can be what's really helpful about seeing a physical medicine doctor, because since we're not surgical, that having surgery is not going to generally be the first thing that is suggested.
Right. So what often is it usually the first thing physical therapy, or is it sometimes just things people can do on their own, or what is generally the first step? I guess it kind of depends on what the potential injury or discomfort is, right?
Right. How long the person has had it. And sometimes things do go away quickly. But if they're hanging out for a while, the person will usually see their primary care doctor to ask for advice. And it's okay to see a physical therapist very early on, because there's so much, so many tips and tricks and guidance to be given, even if it's just, please use a sit stand desk, where you're able to change your position
Right.
As often as you need to. And the physical therapist is often able to help figure out, oh, you're tight in this muscle, or you're weak in this muscle, so you need to work on these deficits. So a lot of positive comes out of seeing a physical therapist first, even if the person is not seen by a specialist or a surgeon.
Okay.
Self-care stuff, you may have looked up things online to try to help yourself, and sometimes, oftentimes that is helpful, but sometimes it's also overwhelming.
Yeah.
Where you don't know where to put your energy. What
Right.
am I supposed to do first?
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of people too, they look up things on the internet and you put in your symptoms and it's like, oh, you might have this, or, something really bad, and people sort of get worried right away, probably for nothing a lot of times. So more helpful to actually see someone who is trained in that.
Reassurance. There's a lot of reassurance that happens, and a lot of education that happens. And so some of my visits, that's all it is. It's reassurance, and education. I haven't fixed someone with my words, but have guided them to where to focus their energy.
Right. So what do you like best about your job?
The fact that I am educating folks about something that they really, really need to know. So oftentimes I'm explaining something that they had never heard of before. Like, for example, why our spine hurts? Why can a disc hurt? And so the patient looks just sort of amazed, but then also relieved, like, oh,
Right.
This is a real thing. It can cause discomfort. You're validating the fact that something is hurting, but all the pictures and MRIs and x-rays aren't necessarily saying that this is the problem.
Right.
So that validation, and then kind of empowering that person that they can really help themselves. And there are things that they can do to help themselves.
Okay, so we talked about your work. Let's talk about your free time and your family life a little bit. Married to your husband, Justin, in 2008. How did you guys meet?
Well, my friend from high school, Suzanne, works in Justin's industry. So there was a big show happening in New York. I was in between graduating from the Cleveland Clinic program and then moving to my first job at the University of Florida. So we were introduced at the Producers musical, and kept in touch. I wanted to experience Southern California, which is where Justin lived at the time, and so he was my tour guide when I went out a couple weeks after I met him to just tour the area.
Okay.
And the rest is history.
You also mentioned that you would like to have a pet, but you don't currently have one. So
yeah.
that kind of begs the question, why not?
Yeah. So Justin works from home, and so I guess the idea is that I would be like the irresponsible child that doesn't take care of the pet.
Okay.
That Justin would be responsible.
So you want the pet more than he does?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that the pet would be eating all the furniture, and then I would be inviting this pet into the bed. So, yeah.
Okay, that kind of makes sense.
But there's still hope. There's
Okay.
still hope.
Yeah, well, maybe we can convince him. What kind of pet would you like to get? Are you a cat person, a dog person?
I'm allergic to cats, even though we grew up. I grew up with cats. It's one of those things, like, you go away to college and you come back and then discover that you're allergic to your pet.
Right.
And so from a dog perspective, I've done those personality tests online to see what might fit.
Okay.
And a Schnauzer seems to fit.
Some of your interests, we talked about salsa dancing that you kind of picked up, and formal ballroom dancing in college. You were also on the board of directors for a hip hop dance troupe. How did that come about?
Yeah, I have a good friend who works in philanthropy and went to college for dance and had taken classes at Culture Shock Dance Troupe here in San Diego. And they were looking for board members. And so my friend Keely thought I would be a good fit and invited me to join. And what a learning experience, because I have zero business experience. And, just learned a lot about budgets and working with others, and then also work-life balance and trying to figure out
Yep.
how much energy you're going to put into the org. But it's such an amazing experience because the group was able to, the dancers, who are of all ages from age 5 to 50, were able to put together a hip hop nutcracker, which was amazing, and financially did pretty well.
Nice.
So that it was nice seeing that come to fruition and go on for 5 years.
Very cool. Is that something you might want to get back into again in the future, or?
Potentially, or maybe potentially joining a board of a nonprofit. I haven't figured out what area yet, but yeah, I'd like to get back into community service.
Okay, excellent. You also mentioned during the pandemic you got involved with a book club with some other women, and then also you picked up roller skating during the pandemic. Is that something that was brand new to you, or?
The roller skating, I'm 46 years old. And so, when you talk to somebody about being on something as unstable as skates, you always hear somebody say, "Oh, I used to enjoy that when I was 12."
Right.
That's the first thing that everybody says. And during the pandemic, you could be outside, and San Diego if you can't pick a better place to go through a pandemic in.
Sure.
Because the weather is 70 degrees and perfect every day.
Right.
So we were able to take lessons at an outdoor rink and buy skates. And there's a place here that you could skate every day if you wanted to, outdoors. It's both terrifying and thrilling at the same time. You just want to make sure that you're very well protected.
Yes. You don't want to injure something.
No.
Yeah.
But as far as the other stuff, I've been in book club for quite a while now. I think it's been 6 years or so. And so I wanted to give a shout out to Bruce Wilson, one of my English teachers. I mean, at the time, I don't think I could understand the themes and the concepts quite as well as I can now as an adult.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to let him know that I actually read and have a great time talking about the themes, with my girlfriends. Yeah, book club has been a lot of fun. We meet up every month, and we just met last night, and where we read Will Smith's memoir. So that's been
great.
very
I'm glad to hear that Bruce had that impact on you. That's good. Anything else you miss from? Or anything that you miss from being from back home here in New Jersey? Any special food or anything like that you don't get very readily out in California?
Yeah, there's lots to miss with New Jersey. The rolling hills and green grass, and there are no fireflies out here. And Rita's water ice made an explosion here for a couple years, but none of them made it.
Really?
So I can only get my custard, Italian water ice fix when I go back home to visit my dad in Marlton.
That's surprising, because every year around here, it's like, as soon as spring comes, there's that first day for free water ice, and everybody can't wait after the long winter. But I guess maybe when the weather's nice all the time, you don't worry about getting the water ice as much. I don't know. But all right.
You could get it every day here when it was here.
Well, Sarah, congratulations on a successful career since your time at Cherokee. It was great catching up with you today, and thanks so much for being on the show with us.
No, thank you for having me.
And that's all for this episode of Where Are They Now? For other Lenape District alumnus interviews, check us out online at youtube.com/Lenape District TV. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.